Welcome back, everybody. Bro Sanchez speaking. Today we're going to be talking about eclipses, solar eclipses and lunar eclipses. And we're going to be explaining how these eclipses work on our beautiful flat Earth. And we're going to be also disproving the idea that an eclipse can even happen on a globe. So this is going to be a very interesting video today. And we're going to be talking about Rahu and Ketu. And if you're not familiar with Rahu and Ketu, don't worry. We're going to be very detailed today. And we're going to describe eclipses the way we've been taught in conventional science. And also we're going to be looking at eclipses the way that many ancient people looked at eclipses and hear what they have to say about them. And this is going to be very interesting. So what you're looking at now, this is footage of a solar eclipse that was shot on March 9, 2016, and it was taken in Phuket, southern Thailand. Now, also keep in mind that in Thailand, solar eclipses are considered not to be a result of the moon passing in front of the sun, but a dark celestial body that they called Rahu, and this comes from Vedic astronomy. Now, keep in mind that the math and equations that support the conventional Western model can predict eclipses. All right, people, they can predict eclipses and they can predict other celestial events. But that doesn't mean that their theories are true just because they can predict these things with their math, okay? Why do I say that? Because Vedic astronomy also is a perfect predictor that has been quite effective for several thousands of years, way before conventional science, and it is still effective today. So who's telling the truth? The ancients or NASA? Let's dig deeper. So according to Vedic astronomy, which is the most ancient and accurate system of astronomy on Earth, solar eclipses are not caused by the moon coming in front of the sun, as astronomers teach and believe. Rather, the moon is described as being further away than the sun, and what happens at the time of a solar eclipse is the moon goes behind the sun, and a dark body called Rahu comes between the sun and the earth. And just to support this ancient Vedic astronomy, there's several videos and it's plenty footage out there that can prove this phenomena that is described by the ancestors and the Vedas. There are eclipses that have occurred during the day, during the night, and this shouldn't be according to Western conventional science. This can only happen if there's some type of another body being introduced. And as we move on and go deeper into this, you're going to see just how interesting this is. With just a small amount of research, ladies and gentlemen, you can quickly discover that the modern Western theories do not align themselves with our reality, whereas the ancient Vedic systems and many other ancient systems explain our reality to the T.
Look at the moon on a full moon night. It is shining so brightly that it lights up the whole surface of the earth. On a full moon night, you can clearly see everything. Of course, it is not as bright as sunshine, but everything is very clearly visible. And if you were to view the earth from space on a full moon night, it would not be dark. It would be illuminated by the moonshine, and all the features of the earth would be clearly visible. As there is moonshine, there must also be earthshine. Much of the earth is covered by water, which is a good reflector of sunlight. In fact, the scientists say earthshine is much brighter than moonshine, and according to our understanding, the earth is enormous in comparison to the size of the moon. So, if the moonshine can completely illuminate this earth on a full moon night, then the earthshine can completely illuminate the moon. The earthshine bombarding the moon at the time of a total solar eclipse would be at least 10 times brighter than the moonshine on the earth on a full moon night. If Western astronomers are correct, the solar eclipse would be the perfect time to see the moon illuminated by earthshine. The shadow created which causes the solar eclipse on Earth is, according to NASA, at most 167 miles wide. So if you were sitting on the moon during a solar eclipse, you would see an extremely bright Earth planet with a dark circle of only 167 miles wide. This is not enough to diminish the Earth shine in any significant way. So even though the sun is behind the moon, the full force of the sunshine is hitting the Earth and reflecting off those shiny blue oceans and reflecting off the land also. So the moon is completely illuminated by Earthshine, even though the sun is directly behind it. Now, if Western astronomers were correct, if you were in that 167-mile wide path of the total eclipse of the sun, when the sun was completely covered, you would of course see the sky become black, and then you could see the stars. But if the sun was covered by the moon, you would be able to see the moon quite clearly in front of the sun, illuminated by the Earthshine. Of course, it would not be as bright as the full moon, but the Earthshine would certainly illuminate the surface of the moon, so we could clearly see it and clearly make out the features of the moon's surface. But this does not happen. During a solar eclipse, the sun goes completely black, and even though the sunlight is blocked out and the sky goes black, one cannot detect the moon at all. It is just black. No moon. Of course, we should be able to see the features on the moon as it is being bathed in brilliant Earthshine. The sun should disappear and we should see the stars, and in the place of the sun we should see the moon, illuminated by the Earthshine. But we don't see this.
So again, sun behind the moon, Rahu in between Earth and the moon. This can be proven, especially when we consider what the gentleman just explained, okay? So it can't be the moon that's causing the solar eclipses. We know from the Vedas that what causes solar eclipses is a dark body currently unknown in the Western world, which hides in the shadow of the moon. Rahu is relatively close to us, around the same distance as we think the moon is, but it is completely black. It does not reflect sunlight at all. This kind of sounds similar to a black hole. And if you also look up Lilith, the black moon spoken of in biblical texts, some compare her to this celestial body that's called Rahu, which is completely black and it does not reflect any light. This is also synonymous with the cosmic womb, as above, so below. So what we see happening as a celestial phenomenon is sort of a microcosm or macrocosm cosmic womb, because Rahu is actually deified, and we're going to get into that deification, into that mythology later. But Rahu is sometimes deified as a great mother goddess. So we understand we can't escape the mother in any of these mythologies, and that the eclipse phenomenon may be more ritualistic, more symbolic than we think, based upon our mundane conventional science and what it tells us about the phenomena. Okay, when we explore ancient writings, it becomes a magical event. So even though there's plenty earth shine or light that reflects from earth and falls onto Rahu, because it is a completely black body, none of that light will be reflected back. So we will see the sun simply blacked out in the sky on a full eclipse, which is what we do see. So this is absolute proof that the assumption of Western astronomers that solar eclipses are caused by the moon coming between the earth and the sun is wrong. Because if that was the case, we would be able to see the moon during the full eclipse of the sun, as it will be bathed in bright earth shine. Also, something interesting to keep in mind, in Asia during a solar eclipse, the people bang on pots and pans, and it's just a tradition to scare away Rahu. And it's just a tradition, people. It's not meaning that they actually believe, that they're actually scaring off Rahu. It's just a fun tradition. Christians eat crackers and drink wine and grape juice as the blood and flesh of Christ as a tradition. And I don't believe that they think it's his real flesh and blood, folks. So we can say the same for these people here with this situation. Let's not insult them, all right? I don't believe that they literally believe they're scaring off Rahu, okay? It's just a tradition. So what I want to show you all now is just an article from the NY Times that speaks about this tradition. And this article is just going to show you how they hide the truth, because I just explained to you the truth about what goes on in Asia during this time. They beat the pans to scare away Rahu. But let's see what the New York Times say about what happens in Asia during this time, and let's see if it adds up with the truth. If you look over here to the left, it says superstitions fill Asia's darkest day. And again, we're talking about the eclipse when Rahu devours the sun. I already explained to y'all what goes on. The Asians beat on their pots and pans and everything to scare off Rahu. Let's just skip to this part here. This is pretty much all I wanted to point out. It says, when a solar eclipse Tuesday turns daytime into darkness from Pakistan to the Philippines, many people will beat drums, gongs, pots and pans, fire guns into the air. They added something new. Or simply hide indoors. I didn't read about that one in the Asian myth. To ward off feared calamities ranging from war, floods, famine, and political upheaval to personal misfortune. Here it is from the New York Times. They said when a solar eclipse happened in Asia, that these people beat on pans, they shoot guns in the air, hide in their closets and all of that crap, because they scared of war, floods, famine, and political upheaval and personal misfortune. This is what the New York Times reported. Do y'all see here how they was careful to leave out Rahu? So they just explain these people culture, and they just explain the same ritual to y'all brother Sanchez just explained. How can you explain it and not mention Rahu? The whole beating of the pans is centered around Rahu. Why didn't the New York Times mention that? They just straight up made a mockery out of these folks' tradition. That's why over here in the Western world, we believe everything the government say, and we don't question these other countries for ourselves. When you study these other countries, you'll see why our country going to war with these people. In the Middle East, they still teach flat earth cosmology. Could that be a reason why we hate the Middle East so much? This stuff go deeper than what y'all think, man. Here it is, I just read to you how they lying on these people. They talking about these people shooting guns and running up under beds and stuff because they scared of calamities and war and floods. These people doing this as a ritual because they understand that the true cosmology, we have X moons and shadow bodies. They understand that Rahu and Ketu is real. But since over here they don't want to let us know that it's real, they report the story like this. If they thought it was fake, they would just tell you the foolish story and all of us Americans would laugh at it. But they know if they tell this story to all these Americans, some of us gonna be like, wait, that make more sense than ours. So we don't even know about all of these other stories, so it's not fair. You was born in this country, they gave you your science, your religion, and everything. Some of y'all got rid of your religion, but you're still holding on to their science and they globe because you can't see that it's a religion. You got to go around and see what everybody else cosmology is and put them all on the table, do your own research, and then make your choice. If you still choose the NASA globe and the Western conventional science and the globe after that, then I'll respect you. But if you just choosing it based on that's all you know since birth, you still in the matrix. You have not questioned anything outside of your box. So again, the New York Times is full of crap. They just made a mockery out of a beautiful ritual that I explained in its proper light. And here they go telling you the deception to hide the reality of Rahu. Now let's move on, people. So keep in mind that this story can be found in all types of scriptures in and around Southeast Asia and India. Rahu is featured in temples all over Thailand and other countries. Keep in mind also that when we talk Southeast Asia, that Tibet is a spiritual center, a very powerful place, as well as Angkor Wat and others. So this is very much an accepted part of the historical astronomy of these regions. And also remember that it's many thousands of years older, and it's just as precise. I believe even more precise than conventional science, which again, when it comes to the movement of the sun and the moon, is based on math when we deal with conventional science. So when we talk about Newton, Galileo, and all these other Western scientists being able to predict solar eclipses and equinoxes, all they are doing is using a timetable, mathematical formulas, and you also can use circles if you like to predict when things will happen in the sky. It really doesn't matter when it boils down to it, because it's all just keeping time. Anybody can make these predictions, and you can form many systems to come up with the same answer that NASA is coming up with. If you ask me, NASA's probably using the Vedic system and translating it into their math, into their formulas, and plagiarizing it that way, re-giving it to you that way, so they can add in their theories and delete Rahu and Ketu from the whole experiment and hide the ancient truth once again. It's a very good possibility that NASA can be doing just that, especially when you consider the fact that the NASA logo resembles a lot of Vedic symbolism. It also resembles the symbol of Ouroboros, and I will be going into a future video on Vedic symbolism. So again, you can come up with all type of conclusions or thoughts that you want to come up with, but no one has never seen any of the moon's features during the eclipse, which we should, people, okay? And it's really support the reality of Rahu as spoken of by the ancients, because it was spoken of as a dark body, complete dark body, almost like a shadow orb, and it reflects no sunlight, kind of like a black hole, a very dark companion, all right? And when we see eclipses, this is exactly what we see, a completely dark body that's crossing. And we should see some of those moon features at some time in history, or have a photo somewhere with just a small glimpse of the features when it crosses in front of the light. But we never have observed this, which means since we haven't observed it, we can only continue to accept what the ancients said based on observation. I mean, that's fair, right? We should see some moon features during the eclipse, but we don't. We see exactly what the ancestors describe, but yet we take what conventional science gives us. This dark body called Rahu was spoken of by all of our ancestors in many different ways. And another thing I want to point out real quick about the sun and the moon, they teach us that the moon reflects the light of the sun, but this cannot be true. And this is an experiment you can do on your own. All right. Take a thermometer and you can actually take the temperature of the moonlight. Now, in this experiment, which many flat earthers and others have done, what you will find is that when you take the temperature of moonlight is actually cold. And to further prove my point, in this experiment, what the experimenter does is he or she also takes the temperature of moon shade. So at nighttime, we take our thermometer and we see what the temperature is like in the shade, in the nighttime shade, in the moon shade. And what has came out of that experiment is a startling revelation, ladies and gentlemen, that moon shade is warmer than moonlight. Take a minute and digest that and ponder deeply. This proves that the moon cannot be reflecting the light of the sun, because if that was so, then if the sunlight is warm and hot, then if it's reflecting the sunlight, it should be warm and hot. All right. The moonlight itself is a completely different composition than the sunlight. I mean, the sunlight is warm and red. Moonlight is silver and cold. And again, moon shadow is warmer than moonlight, proving that the light of the moon is very cold. If you were to stand under moonlight, you can feel its coldness, and it's direct opposite of the sun, which if you stand under sunlight, it's very warm. So here is our yin yang symbol coming into effect, and opposites subtract. What we got to keep in mind is that what I just explained to you is perfect yin yang balance with the sun and the moon. And there's plenty biblical scriptures to support that the moon is its own light source. It's a lesser light. And this is in all of your Christian Bibles. The Bible describes the two as separate lights. And at some point in this video, I will be reading some scriptures from the book of Enoch, because the book of Enoch was taken out of the Bible for many reasons. And one of those reasons was to hide Rahu and Ketu, because in early Christian cosmology, remember, they were flat earthers who had the same ancient cosmology that all of our ancestors had, until they changed it and created what I call, and many others call, the New World Orders of today, where we are globe heads and so far from our ancient truth. And it is coming back around at this time with channels like mine and others. As I move on in this, what I want to point out is that the moon is its own light source, and it's self-luminescent. I'm going to be showing you some mysterious footage here in a minute that's going to blow you guys away. So by calculations done with the sextant, the sun appears apparently closer than the moon. And you know, we say everything is backwards and the elite are hiding so much. We say that these people in power turn everything upside down and inside out. And they tell us that the sun is very far away and that the moon is close. So you know it's susceptible in the realm of the flat earther to consider, with all of his investigations, observations, and his senses, to consider that it's actually the sun which is closer and the moon that is further away. And I can tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, that I took a trip to San Diego, and the footage you're looking at now is some of that footage that I was shooting along the road as we drove in San Diego along the coast. And it's beautiful because when the sun is over the ocean, you can see that the sun is very close. If the sun was 93 million miles away, and in the model that we've been given, sunlight will not reflect on the ocean the way it does. This picture in front of you, this would not be possible on a globe. First of all, the light reflected upon the water would be distorted by curvature. Second of all, that wouldn't be a spot directly beneath that sun. Even when you look at the moon at nighttime as it passed through clouds, it illuminates the clouds that's near it. It illuminates that section of that clouds that it's near, just as if you had someone holding a lamp and they was walking with it. Okay, the sun and moon are local light sources that carry their light with them as they move. And you can observe this in your reality if you open up your mind and be your own scientist, question what was given to you, and don't worry about the insults that come along with thinking for yourself. So think outside of the box and outside of the globe, for that matter. You think about it. I remember being on a beach with my family, and we be on a beach sometimes from sun up to sundown. And what I observe on a beach is that when the sun is overhead, it is baking us, man. I'm talking about you got to dip in the water every now and then because that thing is overhead and it's cooking you. And as the sun moves down the ocean and towards the horizon line, it carries its light with it as well as its heat. I remember being on a beach observing this. The later we got into the day and the moon came onto the scene and brought its light, that its light was very cold. I even remember the family shaking and shivering, and we would start getting out the water, putting on jackets. It's time to leave now. Okay, if the moon was reflecting sunlight, then it wouldn't be total opposite of sunlight, which is cold light. All right, and you can observe this for yourself. You don't have to be at the beach. These are simple observations that we ignore because we gladly accept the theories ever since we're children. We never have time to question it. All right. They spin us around, put us to work, and we ignore our reality. But when we start questioning it, we realize who we are, what we are, and the damage that has been done. And we begin undoing it because knowledge is power and the truth will set you free. Now let's move on. So when I read about the ancient mythologies and I study the ancient cosmogonies, they support our reality to a T, even though no one can be 100% accurate of anything. We can be 100% accurate that we're not on a spinning ball globe. That we can be 100% accurate of. Okay, you know, who knows what's really going on up there. So it is clear that once again NASA and conventional science is wrong and the ancestors' truth make more sense. Earth is a realm, and these people telling us they know everything that's going on, and they taking all of our tax money when it's clear that they know nothing. And for real, people, I don't even believe you can make it to the moon or the sun or the stars, because the more I study, the more I see them all as sort of like interdimensional objects, meaning like some sort of projectors or converters that are almost translucent like, or even almost holographic in nature. And they behave more like conscious beings or spiritual bodies. And when you fly up towards them at a certain height, they disappear. So that's why I say they're translucent or they holographic in nature. It's hard for me to explain, but at a certain height, you can't even see the sun. And that's like a mystery we can't explain. At a certain height, you can't even see the stars or the sun. It's just darkness. So the sun and the stars are some kind of interdimensional objects that exist right within the realm of our very atmosphere. They're being projected there, so to speak. And I know I'm not explaining this to the fullest of my potential, but just to kind of give you a glimpse of what I'm coming to see them as, because, you know, I'm still researching. We've been learning the lies our whole life, so I'm not going to base any real conclusions in a couple of days. Now, I've been researching flat earth for a long time, but there's so many aspects of it. And right now we're dealing with eclipses, Rahu and Ketu, which is a very interesting subject. And like I said, one can come up with many theories. I encourage you guys to do so and leave them in the comment section, because it's very interesting. You know, we go up a certain height, we don't even see the sun and stars. We come back down and the sky is lit up. I mean, how do we explain this? So everything the ancestors spoke of is supported when we really pay attention to our reality. What happens is we don't pay attention to our reality. We accept the theories, the equations. We go to the movies and watch the Star Wars movies and all of this propaganda that further brainwashes us. And we're in a false reality. And we wake up every day. We hardly go outside and look up. And we don't observe our reality. We just interpret it through the math and mumbo jumbo of conventional science. And we live our whole life with the truth hidden from us. And therefore, we're not free because we don't have the truth. And the root of all of the world lies in religions and evolution and all of these things lies in flat earth cosmology, because once you debunk the globe, you debunk all of the world religions and evolution. So this is the blocks at the bottom of the Jenga stack. When you pull them, the whole thing comes crashing down. So let's move on. So if solar eclipses were the result of the moon coming between the sun and earth, then we should have some wonderful pictures from space. Think about that, people. NASA should have some amazing photos of this phenomena, y'all. But we don't. All we have is CGI. So as we enjoy this footage of a real eclipse, remember that these are predicted by many, many cultures and people all over Earth. And these predictions are done without NASA's math. Remember, NASA's math is new. Our ancestors was predicting these things before any of their mumbo jumbo and their theories. Remember that Everything you believe is based upon NASA's theories. You have no true mythology until you go back to the Vedas and to the ancient flat earth cosmology, because in case you didn't know, the oldest cosmology on earth is flat earth cosmology. So why don't you go all the way back to the foundation and disprove that cosmology for yourself? Instead of take the mumbo jumbo they gave you to prove the globe, be honest. Go back to flat earth cosmology just as you would have been if you were an ancient person. Think about it. If you were on an ancient earth and there were no liars and deceivers and TVs and propaganda and miseducation, you would believe just what the creator show you, just what your eyes see. You wouldn't deny your senses. That's why the world's so senseless today, because we deny our senses. Nothing makes sense now when we do that. So if you were living back like an ancient person, you wouldn't question your senses. You see a horizon. The root word of horizontal is horizon. You wouldn't deny the fact that it's horizontal. No matter how high we rise, even above the clouds, there's a 360 straight line that never bends all around us. And this is proof alone that you're on a flat plane. So the phenomena we see in our reality could only be possible on a flat earth. And when you read all of the mythologies to the ancient world, you would have to change all of your pseudoscience about life being seeding on earth by rocks clashing together and different monkey men and fish men and all of this pseudoscience about a creator that creates with cataclysms and destruction, none of which we have ever seen in our lifetime. Comets and meteors aren't what you think they are, but that's a whole nother video. And I really want to save that for just a video in and of itself. But that is something that has been explained, and what we've been told by NASA doesn't add up. So stay tuned for my video on micrometeoroids, meteors and comets and all of that. Right now, we're just going to deal with some more Rahu and Ketu and eclipses. So before I move any further, something I want to blow your mind about is that Rahu and Ketu are also called the lunar nodes. And when you start researching the lunar nodes, you're getting back into conventional science, although you can see remnants of the ancient science, because the truth is the truth, interpreted in many ways, and you will see the agenda. Their agenda hide the ancient truth associated with our reality. They hide the fact that our ancients spoke of shadow moons. In other words, there are many companions in the sky that we cannot see, but they are always there. There are more celestial bodies in our sky than we can see with our eye. And sometimes we see some of those bodies, Rahu and Ketu being the main ones. But what I want to point out to you guys is there are many more celestial bodies that are mysterious that have popped up on camera in our reality and have supported the ancient truth once again. So keep that in mind. Rahu and Ketu are not the only two mysterious objects in our sky. These two accompany the sun and moon, and they're like shadow companions. And there are many different bodies. And sometime when they cross in front of the moon or the sun, they reveal themselves. I know you're seeing the footage in the background as I speak to you. And this is what I'm talking about. These different mysterious bodies. Explore some of this mysterious footage so you can get an understanding of what I'm talking about. These different mysterious bodies that appear when there's not an eclipse. So in the first clip, you're going to see another body that appear during an eclipse. And that's a very strange one I want to point out. And it's beautiful. So in this first clip, we see an eclipse going with the mysterious object kind of shooting away from it. You can see it's clearly a celestial body, a disk. We can only say disk because we don't see a sphere. I mean, you have to be honest. What you do see is a disc. We can't say it's spherical. Maybe it is, but we can only go by observation in this case, if you ask me. This is very interesting footage to just give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about different mysterious objects that we see in the sky that we're not being taught about in conventional science, but the ancestors spoke of these things. So now what I'm going to read to you is some biblical references. Remember that these references are based on the book of the Secrets of Enoch, which was removed from the Bible because it revealed many things that would rip apart this modern Western theology that plagues the earth. Here is what the Creator told Enoch. On the first uppermost circle, I placed the stars Chrono, and on the second Aphrodite, and the third Iris, on the fifth Zeus, and on the sixth Hermes, and on the seventh Lesser the moon, and adorned it with lesser stars. So here it says that the moon was adorned with lesser stars, meaning that the moon was given companions, not just Ketu, because the moon's companion in ancient mythology is known as Ketu, and it is responsible for lunar eclipses, just like Rahu is responsible for solar eclipses. These are the two bodies that are responsible for our eclipses, and they are depicted as the one without a body and the one without a head. And I'm going to get into that mythology here in a minute. We want to get the science down before we get into the mythology. I just admire the ancestors for the way they perceived our reality. So here we reading from the book of the Secrets of Enoch, and we see that the moon was adorned with lesser stars, which supports the fact that the Creator gave the moon companions, and we can prove it with the footage that I'm showing you here. We can see these lesser stars and these companions. Now, am I a Christian? No. Everyone texts support this truth, not just the Christian texts. I'm going to the Christian text because it's the most powerful in my society. If I was in the Middle East, I would go to the Quran to prove to them that at some point they was on track until the deceivers came. All right. So the same in our situation, we dealing with a Christian nation. So I refer to the Bible for you Christians who want to know why I'm using the Bible, and it must be true because we supporting the truth with it. I can support the same truth in the Quran and many other books that predate the Bible. So understand that I'm using your Bible as a convenience for you. So you can see here that even your Bible supports this truth. And as we move on with more of the book of Enoch, it says, and on the lower, I placed the sun for the illumination of day, and the moon and stars for the illumination of night. Let's repeat that again, because most of y'all believe that the moon reflects the sunlight when I just proved that that is not possible. You are looking at footage right now of the sun and moon out at the same time, and the moon is not full, yet the sun is directly in front of it. It should be full if the sun is directly in front of it, people. So the moon is a luminary. It's self-illuminating. And the different phases it does all on its own. I'm going to try to pull up the footage here in a minute where a guy actually caught the moon going from a dull gray and self-illuminated into the bright white moon that we see a lot. So the moon is dynamic and it's a light show all of its own. And like the scriptures say here, on the lower, I placed the sun for the illumination of the day. That's your one half of the yin yang. And the moon and the stars for the illumination of night, the other half of the yin yang. The sun doesn't do the work of the night, and the moon don't do the work of the day. They both rule their own time. Night is its own entity. Night is Nut in Egyptian cosmogony, and it's its own entity. It's also the thing that all things emanate from, darkness, and I will be doing future videos on that darkness and the cosmic womb and this this night energy. And there was a goddess called Nit who personified night well after these Egyptian goddesses. So even when we go beyond the Egyptian goddesses, we can still see that this stuff been around so long and it's just now being corrupted. So The creator made the sun for the daytime, the moon for the nighttime. These are two totally different types of light that do two totally different types of things to your psyche and the way they hypnotize and bring up forth their hypnotic effect. So the sun don't help the moon give us night light. Start observing your reality. You'll see that the night light is silver. It's cold. It's a different feeling than the warm, bright daytime energy. These are two equal entities that have their own energy, just like two different sides of a battery. So we got to bring back balance in our minds and in our science so we can perceive the truth of our reality, because the truth, again, is what's going to set us free. So we see as we move on in the book of Enoch, the sun, that it should go according to each constellation, 12. And I appointed the succession of the months and their names and lives, their thunderings and their hour markings, how they should succeed. Chapter 11, here they took Enoch up on the fourth heaven, where is the course of sun and moon. Those men took me and led me up onto the fourth heaven and showed me all the successive goings and all the rays of the light of sun and moon. So I want to repeat that one. It says, those men took me and led me up onto the fourth heaven and showed me all the successive goings and all the rays of the light of sun and moon. So they clearly separated those rays to say that the rays of light of sun and moon, not the rays of the sun that's being reflected from the moon, but each has their own light and their own rays. Okay. So as I read on, it says, and I measured their goings and compared their light and saw that the sun's light is greater than the moon's. Now, if that's not a dead giveaway right there in the book of Enoch, I don't know what is. And now you see why that book was taken away from the Bible, because they're hiding our true cosmology. Again, NASA makes 18 billion. They have made trillions since they've been created, and all they have to do is give us paintings, illustrations, nice artwork, green screen, CGI, stuff you can do in your house for $100. Some of the stuff they give you is ridiculous because you're so dumbed down, you accept it and you don't question it. And not only is the monetary gain a motive, but also the control factor. We are more than what they're telling us we are as humans. And the earth is so much more than what they're telling us we are. There's so much more to the mysteries of life and death and the heavenly bodies above. And it's all been hidden under these theories and the theos, which is men who have placed themselves in the place of God and begin to interpret the reality and interpret the creation in their own ways. And by doing so, they interpret the creation. They tell us what the creation is in their sciences, and by doing so they tell us what the creator is. So their science is a religion in itself, because if you believe that the creator is the nature of the conventional Western science, if you believe that there's a creator that's chaotic and the way they have taught us in this matrix since we were born, if you agree with them, humanity, you got to be foolish. You got to be a fool. You really got to be a fool, all right? If you agree that the creator is the nature they teach us, this clumsy and imperfect being. Our reality is perfect. There's 360 days in our year because a perfect circle is 360 degrees. They gave you 365 days and they got you on an imperfect calendar. The true calendar is 360 days for 360 degrees. And each day is a degree. They got us off the true time clock, ladies and gentlemen. Brother Sanchez just trying to get us back on track. So let me stay right on the subject. And as we can see here, this scripture is a dead giveaway. It's saying, I measure their goings and compare their light. And I saw that the sun's light is greater than the moon's. Right there in the book of Enoch. It says its circle and the wheels on which it goes always, like the wind going past with very marvelous speed, and day and night it has no rest. Do you hear me? It goes on to say its passage and return are accompanied by 4 great stars, and each star has under it 1,000 stars to the right of the sun's wheel, and by 4 to the left, each having under it 1,000 stars, altogether 8,000, issuing with the sun continually. So here it's accounting for all of the light fixtures in the sky, including all of the ones we can't see. It's clearly telling you that our sky is so dynamic, you'll be a fool to think NASA got it all under control with their goofy little equipment and their foolishness and deception. So as we move on and read more, it says, and by day 15 myriads of angels attended, and by night 1,000. And 6 winged ones issue with the angels before the sun's wheel into the fiery flames, and 100 angels kindle the sun and set it alight. So that's just some biblical mythology. And, you can explore that and you can see that there's clearly biblical proof of Rahu and Ketu, and also what some call X moons. If you Google X moons, what you will find is that there are different moons. There are different other celestial bodies in the sky, and they pass a lot of this stuff off as UFOs. They pass it off as brown dwarf star planets. They pass it off as Nibiru. But when they tell you about Nibiru, they say that it's accompanied by, I think, 26 other planets that's rotating. What people don't know about Nibiru is that Nibiru is a system. They teach that Nibiru is a system. And when you start researching Nibiru, it's really scientifically impossible for it to exist, especially when you realize that space doesn't exist and what we've been taught about the universe doesn't exist. That cancels out Nibiru. So you can check out my video that I done on Nibiru, and it will debunk and go into the whole Nibiru cataclysm and all of that. So explore the channel, find a video, check it out. Free your mind. Nibiru does not exist. There are X moons and shadow companions and different orbs that exist in our reality, and we can't forget about reflection and refraction when it comes to Nibiru. I think I need to do an updated video on that to, keep the content fresh on Nibiru. Remember, the sun is close. The sun and moon is very close. They're saying that Nibiru is light years away and we're able to see it. They're saying that Nibiru is accompanied by all of these violent bodies. So if that was Nibiru in the sky that they're passing off on a lot of this news footage, then the earth would be under attack and we would be getting a lot of little meteors and micrometeors from those bodies. There would be some kind of disruption. There would be something. If you understand that the sun is close, Nibiru can't exist, because that would mean that Nibiru is within our atmosphere, and the way they describe it, that would mean that we would all be dead, okay? So what you're seeing in the sky is not no Nibiru. It's reflection, refraction, or it's either X moons, what I'm explaining to you now. Now, I'm not going to go deep into Nibiru or X moons. What I will do is make another future video strictly on that. You see, because it's so much. And just think, they say that Nibiru is a brown dwarf star. So if it was that close, think about how hot it is, people, when our sun is out on a hot day. All right. Now think if there was another sun next to our sun, that would double the heat. The oceans would boil. Nibiru is a brown dwarf star, according to pseudoscientists. So if it was the second sun and it was that close to our sun, why isn't the temperature on Earth increasing when we see this second sun in the sky? Please use y'all head and quit being a fool, listening to everything somebody tell you because you want to believe in pseudoscience. I'm giving you back ancient truth, and I'm showing you footage right in front of your face. How can you deny it when NASA just showing you animations and CGI stuff? And it's flat earthers getting their basic cameras going out recording this stuff, giving you authentic footage because the people we giving $18 billion a year to won't give us the truth. We finna crank it up even more. So when you do a simple Wikipedia search on the lunar nodes, of course you will find a bunch of mumbo jumbo to support the bogus globe. But if you skip down to names and symbols when you get to Wikipedia, you will read a little center section that give you another example of the lunar nodes as it relates to another type of mythology in European texts. And at this time, I guess that this is when a deception started taking place. So a lot of you people who are into our ancient sciences and learning about the ancestors, this is more proof that show you you're not going back ancient enough because you're still in the European mythos. And you can see here, I'll read it real quick for you. It say the nodes are called by different names in different areas of the world, as I mentioned previously. Since the ascending node is the point of intersection between the ecliptic and the plane of the lunar orbit where the moon is ascending from the south to the north, it is sometimes called the north node. In ancient European texts, it is referred to as the dragon's head, Caput Draconis, or the symbol of the ascending node is the astronomical and astrological symbol for the dragon's head. Similarly, the descending node is the point where the moon is descending from the north hemisphere to southern hemisphere and is sometimes referred to as south node. It is also known as the dragon's tail, Coda Draconis, and its symbol is the inversion of that of the ascending node. Note that the so-called north node may in fact lie south of the south node in the course of the nodal cycle. So here you can see the deception. They don't want to account for all of these different bodies that the ancestors spoke of. And it goes on to say in Hindu astronomy, the ascending node is called Rahu and the descending node is called Ketu. In Tibetan astrology, partially based on Kalachakra Tantra, the southern node is named Kalagni. The Tibetan cosmos is very interesting. It's the same as the Buddhist or the Hindu cosmos. So we can see that in this European mythos, it's a corrupted form of the Rahu and Ketu mythology, because here you have in the European texts the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, and in the Hindu astronomy, Rahu is the one without a head and Ketu is the one without a body. So you see these parallels and similarities because everything is plagiarized and corrupted to serve this New World Order agenda. If you think that they're giving you the truth in your science, you're wrong. You and the powers that be should not share the same cosmology while ignoring the truth of the ancients. It makes no sense in you calling yourself conscious. So at least do the research and prove flat earth wrong, and prove all flat earthers and all the ancient people wrong. Because remember, the oldest cosmology on earth is flat earth cosmology. Y'all said that we got so smart that we proved that the globe exists after so many years. But what you'll realize is we proved nothing. They lied about the globe and they never proved it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be theory today. You will have some real pictures of the earth by now. And like I said, you will have some amazing pictures of these eclipses from so-called space. And that'll be marvelous, but you don't. All you got is pictures and footage that's shot by regular people like me and you who looking for the truth. We giving them 18 billion, but we got to go outside and shoot the footage to show the world the truth and teach them the real science on our own. And what we see in footage that regular people showing is what the ancestors said, not none of that stuff that NASA is talking. Again, why we don't have no amazing footage yet of this stuff, y'all. The only footage we got is the footage I'm showing you in this video that's shot by regular people. We should be getting the damn 18 billion a year. We know that Brahma is the patriarchal lord of the Hindu religion, and Brahma is a form of Abraham and predates Abraham. And this is the form of Abraham in that culture. We're not going to get into that. I will be getting into the religious thing in a future video, but to stay on subject, Brahma is one of the primal characters in this myth. It started off with a couple of characters. We know that Vishnu is one of the key characters in this myth. And if you read about the churning of the ocean of milk in Hindu mythology, this all goes with the same story. Basically, Lord Brahma was into a conflict, and the Devas guided him to Lord Vishnu, which is the preserver of the Hindu cosmos. And to make a long story short, you will read that eventually Lord Vishnu incarnated as Mohini, the enchantress and the most beautiful female form in the universe. And this is a picture of her here. Why did I stop here to bring this up? Because if you look at the headdress, it's the same style that the popes wear and the bee goddess wear. So basically, the primordial source, the original deity of all cosmologies, is a great mother. And Mohini would be the predecessor of all Hindu gods when we deal with this mythology. We see that Vishnu is the preserver of the Hindu cosmos. Again, Mother Goddess is at the center of all ancient cosmogonies. And when we say that Vishnu incarnated as Mohini, okay, because we're referring back to that Mother Goddess, that original matriarchal deity, Vishnu would be the patriarchal form of that. Just like Alat will be the original form of Allah. So when you research the goddess Alat, you will see that all of these male deities are just copies of a great mother, and that there were no male deities that predate any goddesses. But today you don't hear about these goddesses. There's so much sun worship. See, when you start embracing the moon, then we shed light on the goddesses. But in today's world, there's so much sun worship, we forget about the primordial source. We forget about the hidden one. So Mohini here would be the hidden one. And you see that Vishnu will reveal this hidden one here in this myth. And to make a long story short, Vishnu's incarnation, Mohini was a lady with divine beauty. Mohini came with the Amrit pot to the battle place, and she suggested Devdas and the Navas to sit in different rows so that she can distribute Amrit among them. Mohini started distributing Amrit to the Devas. One Danav, Rahu Ketu, sat in the row of Devas and drank the Amrit. The sun god and the moon god noticed him, and they informed Mohini. However, by that time, Rahu Ketu had already became immortal. So where we at in the mythology now, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting into the whole Rahu Ketu's part of this story. And this Danav, or this Deva, was called Rahu Ketu. It was one person named Rahu Ketu. Later, we're going to figure out how it became two different deities, one Rahu, one being Ketu, because right now it's telling us it's just one deity named Rahu Ketu. Vishnu as Mohini cut off his head with Sudarshan Chakra. Rahu Ketu could not die, but his head was separated from his body. His head came to be known as Rahu, and his body Ketu. Now the Devas were immortal, so they fought the Danavas and won. You could, again, do the full story on your own. Just wanted to let you know how Rahu Ketu got separated in the myth. As per Hindu astrology, Rahu and Ketu denote the 2 points of intersection of the paths of the sun and the moon as they move around the celestial sphere. Therefore, Rahu and Ketu are respectively called the north and south lunar nodes. The fact that eclipses occur when sun and moon are at one of these points gives rise to the myth of swallowing of the sun. Everyone has this same prediction and different stories to go along with it. But over here in Western society, we're just being subjected to one. So as I read on, we find out that the Rahu is of feminine and Ketu is of neuter genders. Rahu is of the Karaka, or significator of spiritual knowledge, and Ketu is of the Karaka, or significator of moksha, or the final liberation. As relationship significator, Rahu governs maternal grandparents and Ketu denotes paternal grandparents. So this is some good information here surrounding Rahu and Ketu. I'm not sure if this is a flat earth website or not, but they do have the mythology in a short form here, short and powerful. So if you want to check it out in its fullness, get in the video description area. But we're going to move on and we're going to explore some more. Regarding eclipses, there is a little known and little reported phenomena where the sun and moon are both visible on opposite horizons at the same time, and yet the moon goes into eclipse. That's something you need to think about, people. If eclipses are caused by the way they say they are caused, by the earth's shadow and all of that good stuff, then we have to explain this phenomena. Okay, and scientists avoid this phenomena, and there are idiots on YouTube that try to explain this, and I'm gonna play a video of one of those idiots just to let y'all see how funny it sounds when we try to explain these theories and this mumbo jumbo that we don't even fully understand, because the people who created it barely understand it, because it's a bunch of BS. And you go back to the simple stories of the ancestors and you make simple observations, you trust your senses and you look into it, and you can't help but come to the same conclusions that the ancestors come to. There are some other bodies in our sky that we can't always account for, all right, because of their properties and behavior. But scientists don't want to admit this. You see, the science you have today was in fear of nature's true design. So an idiot on YouTube tries to explain it as the light of the sun bends under the earth to eclipse the moon. Yet he also notes that the shadow comes from above rather than below. But his is not a reasonable or logical deduction, as the light of the sun would actually need to bend before hitting earth rather than going under the earth, so as to cast Earth's shadow onto the moon. The man is clearly groping for an explanation that incorporates his indoctrination of the sun being over 90 million miles away. In one video below, the shadow comes from the side rather than from above the moon, making the sunlight bends under the earth theory even more ridiculous. So the only way an eclipse can be possible, the way this guy is about to describe to you, is if the ancestors' cosmology is real. But if you're unaware of the flat earth cosmology and Rahu and Ketu, you sound like a fool trying to explain this stuff when it's really simple. So now let's check out this video.
Recording? Mm-hmm. Am I on?
Yes.
Am I on?
Shush.
So it's December 10th, about 6:30 in the morning. It's about 18 degrees out here, and we're standing on top of Cahokia Mounds, just east of St. Louis. Behind me is a full moon, which will soon be going into a full lunar eclipse as it sets, kind of a rare experience, while at the same time behind us, the sun is already beginning to rise.
You know, it's very amazing that we see the sun and moon out at the same time, especially in this bizarre instance where this gentleman is right now. We have the sun and moon directly across from each other, and yet there's an eclipse. Now, what you want to pay attention to, I'm going to replay this little scene where he panned the camera, and you can see he panned from the moon to the sun, and there was a straight earth horizon.
While at the same time behind us, the sun is already beginning to rise.
And the only way we can see the sun across from the moon and pan our camera while seeing a flat earth horizon and we're seeing the sun and moon across from each other, the only way that would be possible on a ball earth is in the following example. And the reason that wouldn't be possible is because what would the people at the bottom of the globe see? The observer that's viewing the sun and moon out in his sky at the same time has to consider, what about the people on the other side of the so-called globe? How can you see the sun and moon out in your sky, and yet the people on the other side of the so-called quote-unquote globe still have the sun or moon? It can only be possible with the sun and moon rotating above us all on a flat earth, okay? And what really proves flat earth in this case and drives it all the way home is the fact that the sun and moon are out during an eclipse. This is so easy to explain on ancient flat earth cosmology, especially the oldest and most accurate being the Vedic, and it's so difficult to explain on a sphere. And as we move on into this gentleman's video, you will see what I'm talking about.
This could be a very interesting and beautiful experience. Oh, am I on? Okay. So it's about 6:55, and as you can see, we're getting a little bit brighter out here. You can see the shadow creeping across the moon. It's a little hard to see, I'm sure, in the camera, but from here we can see it nice and clearly. It's about a third of the way covered. The moon's starting to turn nice and orange. Over my right shoulder, you can see downtown St. Louis and the nice early morning sun, which is getting very bright on the eastern horizon behind us. Yeah, we'll get that in there again. So you can see it's practically day here, yet we still have the full moon out, which is slowly eclipsing. It's now about 7:04 a.m. and over my shoulder you probably cannot see anything, but through the stacks of the refinery back there, we can just barely make out a little bit of the moon left. It's about 2/3 the way covered with Earth shadow, and it's turning a sort of pale orange, pinkish color. But with the bright morning sun coming up, there's not enough contrast to be able to see the moon there. We can still see it just a little bit. What I find very interesting is I was expecting the shadow to come upward across the moon as it would go down and it would pass into shadow, and actually it's going the other way around. The shadow, as the moon is here, the shadow is creeping down across the moon, even though the sun's coming up over here, and that must be because of the moon's rotation around the Earth. It's moving farther up, even though the sun's light is actually coming from over there. It's actually coming underneath the Earth. It's actually coming underneath the Earth.
He said the sunlight is actually bending underneath the Earth.
It's actually coming underneath the Earth. So if you imagine the sun is here, the Earth is here, and the moon is back here, and this light was coming under the Earth, but the moon must be rotating around even though we're turning, so it looks like the moon is going down. It's kind of an optical illusion. It's pretty cool.
It's kind of an optical illusion. It's pretty cool. What the? Oh, man.
Officially 7:08, and if you look behind us, the sun is just starting to peek up over the trees. We can't quite see the sun, and behind us, yeah, the moon has pretty much disappeared into eclipse, but otherwise it would be setting right now, but it has been fully eclipsed for just a few minutes, so it disappeared just a couple minutes ago. And you can just see a sliver of the sun through the trees there. You see it now? Can you see it in the camera? Zoom, zoom.
It's right
Lens.
there.
Just a tiny little sliver of brightness coming through the trees as the sun is peeking up. And that's, of course, exactly 180 degrees this direction, 180 degrees the other direction from me is where the moon is. So they're in a perfect line, the moon being this way, the sun being that way, and if we drew a line from it to the Earth, to the moon, it would be a nice perfect straight line. Of course, if it wasn't, they wouldn't be in line and we wouldn't be having a lunar eclipse.
Wrong. You really want me to believe that a perfect lunar eclipse is going to happen that way? He just said it himself that they're 180 degrees across from each other. So how could that be the Earth's shadow that's causing a lunar eclipse if we're looking up at the sun and the moon from the Earth and seeing a flat horizon? You really think something as beautiful, as perfect in alignment as an eclipse, what we just saw, is more likely to happen on a model like this than on a model like this? So what the gentleman is witnessing in the video It's a prime example of what our ancestors would have called Ketu eating the moon. Because we saw directly 180 degrees across from each other was the sun and moon, yet something was gobbling up the moon, and it wasn't the shadow of the earth. We know that this was Ketu because when the moon is being gobbled up, it's Ketu, and when the sun is being gobbled, it's Rahu. So what he's witnessing is a very rare and special event where he's actually seeing a lunar eclipse during the daytime. Ketu is out eating the moon during the daytime, and a lot of these type of stories was put into mythologies and ancient texts.
You can definitely see the sun coming up now if you want to get one last little shot of that. Just a little blip there. And that's it. That was our amazing experience of a sunrise and lunar eclipse at the same time.
And your amazing experience just would not make sense on a globe. I'm sorry. We would not have this bizarre phenomena on a globe. Pay attention to your reality, people. No way we're going to have the sun and moon 180 degrees across from each other and it's daytime and we see a lunar eclipse on the globe. That means somebody on the other side of the globe going to be missing a sun and a moon. Eclipses are a result of Rahu and Ketu as spoken of by the ancestors. So this is just a little video footage of a lunar eclipse at sunrise in Toronto. Again, this is impossible on a globe model. There shouldn't be a lunar eclipse at sunrise. People, open your mind, accept the truth. This is actual footage that you can't deny right here. This debunked everything, people. Check it out now. So they're hiding this knowledge from the public to keep the flat earthers from having a solid explanation for solar eclipses. My hypothesis so far, based on reason, is that the dark body may be above and behind the sun most of the time, and we can't see it because we look at or past the sun from our view on the ground. But ancient Indians said that there are two of these bodies, one for the sun and one for the moon. One body is said to be the blackest black. When shining a laser on a flat black surface, the blackness completely consumes or envelops the light. Therefore, we would not be able to see such an object unless it moves in front of the sun or moon, or covers our view of the stars at night. But as it absorbs light, it will be nearly undetectable the rest of the time. There are many theories we could contemplate on, but one fact remains above all our theories, that NASA know what it is and how it operates, but they aren't telling us anything. So again, this footage is awesome. We see these different bodies vanishing and shooting around because they have mysterious properties. Again, a consciousness of their own. These are spiritual beings. And you can see that this is a lunar eclipse at sunset, guys. And there's another body that we're going to get into. Now, what they're passing off with this Nibiru deception, you can see here is some of these X-moons and different heavenly bodies that were spoke of by our ancestors. But every time they see a different body in the sky, they just say Planet X, Nibiru, just like they do with everything with the UFOs, because they don't want to explain the truth to you. So they just say Nibiru, even though that makes no sense. It should be noted that this explains the Nibiru hoax. You know, how can we determine which body at which time is particularly Nibiru? This debunks the whole Nibiru thing, and this proves to us that there are many mysterious bodies up there as spoken of by the ancestors. I've been trying to figure out for a few years now why stories of Nibiru came out of nowhere. You got to think about that, people, all right? And these stories begin to overwhelm the internet with prophecies about a planet that's going to collide with Earth and cause a cataclysm. So check out my Nibiru video, guys. It's a very important video that's going to free your mind. When I found that these bodies have always existed, the Nibiru story suddenly made sense. The governments are conditioning our minds to explain the bodies away when they are discovered by the public. Look at this, people. Rahu and Ketu are real. X-moons are real. A reddish, shadowy type celestial body that was spoken of by the ancestors, and we actually got proof of it on footage. And this could very well be the explanation for your blood moons. A red, transparent body floating in front of the moon, okay, and eclipsing the moon, causing the moon to turn red. And this body is not the sun, and this body is not the shadow of the earth. There is no way a shadow can be red. If you think a shadow can ever be red, you got to be a fool, people. There's no way a shadow can be red. Keep that in mind, that a shadow cannot be red. What happens during an eclipse when the sun is engulfed by this mysterious black body and it turns completely black, that is called Rahu, and it's a shadowy black celestial body. But there's another celestial body, and it's a reddish, transparent type body, and it causes the blood moon when it passes in front of the moon. But since NASA and the conventional scientists don't want us to know about these mysterious bodies, they just say Nibiru. How can the Earth's shadow be red? We're not thinking about this stuff. We're not questioning our scientists. We're just taking what they say. Understand that the Nibiru stories is to cover up all of this. So the governments are conditioning our minds to explain these bodies away. And these bodies were spoken of by the ancestors. So they don't have to admit that they were hiding this all along. They just say Nibiru is here. Or even better, just let the people argue about it according to the preconditioning the government planted in the public mind. Do you hear what I'm telling you here? Please rewind this video and listen to what I'm telling you here. This is how they hide this stuff, y'all, and they keep us bickering about it. But if you look at this footage that I'm showing you and make your own observation, think about it, people. Listen to what they're telling you. It makes no sense. What the ancestors said is perfect. I mean, this looks just like another body, you know, engulfing the moon. And we really need to investigate our reality and look at the mysteries of it that science is trying to just hide and give us a bunch of boring math. This is a beautiful, mysterious place, y'all, and that's taken away by conventional math. But the ancestors described it in a beautiful way, and they had explanations for these phenomena that conventional science failed to describe fully. But it makes perfect sense with ancient cosmology. Rather than embracing these bodies, which have always been among us, they have instilled in the public a fear of the objects, which are integral and symbiotic, friendly to life on Earth. Let me repeat that again, because even if I said in my own words, I couldn't have said it better. Rather than embracing these bodies, which have always been among us, they have instilled in the public a fear of the objects. And these objects are integral, and they are symbiotic. They are friendly to life on Earth. These things were always spoken of by the ancestors, y'all. And the Creator didn't make none for us to be in fear of. So get off of these YouTube channels that's got you in fear, talking about Nibiru cataclysms and all of this stupid pseudoscience and spookism and alien talk, because the ancestors had the real science to our reality, and it's hidden in flat earth cosmology. So keep on mocking flat earthers all you want to. But these people pull out Illuminati cards all the time to support their claims. But the one Illuminati card they won't pull out is that flat earth Illuminati card. You know, we got to think about this stuff, you know. We live in an awesome reality that's being hidden from us, all right? Ancestors said we are in an infinite realm of consciousness, and consciousness has no shape. The earth is an infinite plane, guys, and we're going to get deep into that in future videos. But this eclipse thing is just magnificent. I'm sorry, all right? So with just a little research, you'll understand that we're being bamboozled. So here we're going to briefly go over the Nibiru phenomena. You can see that this Nibiru talk appeared around the early 80s. And again, check out my Nibiru video on Nancy Leader, and it get into all of this, the origins of this pseudoscience that you think is really the foundation of our reality. But you're not at the truth yet, brothers and sisters. Basically, this website here is just a NASA little blog, a Nibiru blog. And I just want y'all to take a look at the pictures here. These were some of the original sightings that gave birth to the Nibiru theory. And basically all Nibiru is various X-moons. This thing still haven't made its way to Earth yet. It should be so close into our atmosphere with all of its orbiting satellites that we should be getting micrometeors. We should be getting some kind of turbulence by now, some kind of effect or some kind of noticing that this body is coming in. But none of their stuff makes sense. Again, what the ancestors said about X moons and various moons, even in the book of Enoch, I read to you that when the moon was created, it was created with a bunch of mysterious companions, and it was spoken of in many ancient cosmologies. So when you're talking to Nibiru, you're just talking about these different companions and their translucent properties. And some of these Nibiru sightings are simply reflection and or refraction, as I explained in my Nibiru video. And some of the sightings are X-moons and different various mysterious bodies that was spoken of by the ancestors. Remember that the news media promotes Nibiru. All of these sightings end up on major news sightings, and they say Nibiru is coming. And the conspiracy theory YouTubers who do no research other than the news take the news word, and they say, look, y'all, they said Nibiru coming, and they create fear-mongering knowledge, and it's pseudoscience. None of it's true. Nibiru is not coming. These are mysterious bodies that was spoken of by the ancestors, and we need to research the truth and cut the news off. You're on YouTube channels that's giving you misinformation and pseudoscience that's seeded by mass media outlets, agents like David Icke and the likes of them, and you're not going back to the ancient truth, which is unpopular. You're being lazy and you're not doing real research when you YouTubers just take these big stories and run with them and talk out the side of your neck, and everybody add on their little seasoning, and you get all of these dumb theories and pseudoscience, and it's ridiculous. All right, but the truth will set us free. So again, that can't be Nibiru. If that's Nibiru, why aren't we burning up? Do you know how hot it is on a sunny day like this one? Look at the footage, y'all. It's about 90 degrees in this video. That's with just our sun alone. Now look at where the sun is and look at where they said Nibiru is. Nibiru look closer to us than the sun on this video. What I'm saying here is we see nothing orbiting this so-called Nibiru planet. They said Nibiru had over 26 satellites, if I'm not mistaken, and we see nothing orbiting it here. So this supports what the ancestors said, that these mysterious bodies are different bodies that were made as sun and moon companions. The moon has companions and the sun has companions, and you can't always see them. You can't always see their companions, just like you can't always see a rainbow, but the rainbow is always there. You only see it when certain conditions are there and certain angles are present and certain moisture is there. And from a certain angle, you can see the rainbow spectrum, but it's always there. That color spectrum is ever present and it's all around you. So these bodies are always with the sun and moon. We just can't see them because of the translucent nature of our atmosphere and everything, which I'll explain deeper in a future video. Like I said, you can't even see the sun and the stars once you reach a certain height.
Is it hollow?
Yeah, there's only a surface. There's nothing inside.
Is the sun actually, do you believe, combusting in on
It's
itself?
not burning anything. There's no fusion in the sun. That's well understood.
Proven.
Yeah, well, there's just not the way to prove that there is any. It's only in the flares that you get fusion. That's why all the X-rays, the flares, the arcs, and the X-rays and the microwaves and whatever result of fusion in the arcs. There's no fusion in the sun. They don't know how the sun works.
Why do you? What's special? How does the sun make light?
It's a transformer. Transforms from some other dimension. It's not burning anything. It doesn't have to. It's a converter.
Of what?
I don't know. Nobody knows. But that's what it does. That's the only thing it can do, because that's how everything works.
It's transforming from another dimension.
Yeah, you could say it's taking energy from another dimension, counter space. There's no energy, actually. You can't. Most of it you can't even measure in outer space or see.
You can't see.
No, you can't see the sun in free space.
So the sun is not visible in outer space.
Not in free space. It's only invisible when gross matter becomes involved, like the Earth's atmosphere and envelope. That makes the light. Otherwise, there is no light. You can see the moon, you can see the Earth, but you can't see the sun or you can't see the stars. Right, you can see material objects, but you cannot see the sources of light. There is no light until there's a material object.
To reflect all.
So that means there's no time delay. So the whole time delay thing is meaningless. It doesn't take light years. There are no light years because there's no light. So that means that the light you see from the distant stars isn't 4 million years old. It could be only minutes old. It could be instantaneous. All the theories collapse when you can't see the stars in outer space.
So we got to understand that we can see the night sky and all of its luminaries based on the angles we are from the earth and the nature of them, their projective natures and translucent natures. But again, this can't be Nibiru. This supports the ancient truth and not no Nibiru, because you would have to triple the heat now that this new sun is introduced. Think about what I'm saying. It's hotter outside during noontime, right? Imagine if you were at the beach during noontime with the sun overhead and it was just baking down on you. We're talking 95 degrees, a beautiful beach day where you don't want to get out the water because it's so hot. Then imagine another sun coming to the quote-unquote solar system. Wouldn't the temperature of the earth double now? Think about it. Wouldn't the temperature increase just a little bit? Why don't we think about this, people? Wouldn't the temperature go from 95 degrees to around 170 some degrees now that we introduce another sun? Come on, people, think with me just for a minute. Please free your mind and understand we've been deceived now. If the news promoting this Nibiru crap like this, you know it's a lie. That ain't no doggone second sun. These are the mysterious orbs that was spoken of by our ancestors. Now, as you look at this footage in front of you, I want to make my own hypothesis about this particular orb in particular. If you notice during a blood moon or sometime the moon is red, there's a mysterious reddish body that pass in front of the moon sometime and make the moon appear red. That could be this body right here, y'all. That could be this right here. Sometimes this body right here may eclipse the moon and make the moon appear red when we're looking at the moon through this translucent type object here. Okay, because all of these things have a degree of transparency, translucent type nature to them. So this can be like a filter that we're looking at the moon through this on all of those nights when the moon turned red. And that's clearly some type of mysterious red body that causes blood moons and causes the moon to turn red. The Nibiru deception is part of the agenda to hide Rahu, Ketu, and the X moons. So according to conventional science, the sun and moon appear the same size in Earth's sky because the sun's diameter is about 400 times greater, but the sun is also about 400 times farther away. As told and sold by global Earth theorists, what are the odds? Also note how the sun, moon, and Earth are never shown in their relative distance of 93 million miles away to a very tiny Earth and even smaller moon. The sun, we are told, is blocked by the moon so perfectly we can see the sun's corona. Yet how can this be when both the sun and moon are in the sky above at the exact same time as the lunar eclipse? The Newtonian hypothesis involves the necessity of the sun, in the case of a lunar eclipse being on the opposite side of a globular Earth, to cast its shadow on the moon. But since eclipses of the moon have taken place with both the sun and the moon above the horizon, it follows that it cannot be the shadow of the Earth that eclipses the moon, and that the theory is a blunder. That the eclipser of the moon is a shadow at all is assumption. No proof whatever is offered. That the moon receives her light from the sun, and that therefore her surface is darkened by the Earth intercepting the sun's light is not proved. It is not proved that the Earth moves in an orbit around the sun, and therefore by being in different positions, conjunction of sun, earth, and moon, they sometimes occur. The contrary has been clearly proved, that the moon is not eclipsed by a shadow, that she is self-luminous and not merely a reflector of solar light, and therefore cannot possibly be obscured or eclipsed by a shadow from any object whatever. And that the Earth is devoid of motion either on axis or in an orbit through space. Hence to call that an argument for the Earth's rotundity, where every necessary proposition is only assumed, and in relation to which direct and practical evidence to the contrary is abundant, is to stultify the judgment and every other reasoning faculty. As early as the time of Pliny, there are records of lunar eclipses happening while both the sun and moon are visible in the sky. They try to explain this stuff away in our conventional science today, and I'm just trying to free your mind. So keep that in mind, y'all. If lunar eclipses are happening while both the sun and moon are visible in the sky, that proves right there that something ain't right with what they teaching us. Free your mind, people. If the Earth's shadow is responsible for all of the moon phases and eclipses, it's impossible to explain a half moon. Why is a half moon a straight line and the Earth is supposed to be a globe? So this is not nothing to do with the Earth's shadow. These are different bodies, and this is also the moon acting as its own little nightlight. The moon go from different phases within seconds. The Greenwich Royal Observatory recorded that during the lunar eclipses of July 17, 1590, November 3rd, 1648, June 16, 1666, and May 26, 1668, the moon rose eclipse while the sun was still above the horizon. McCulloch's geography recorded that on September 20th, 1717 and April 20th, 1837, the moon appeared to rise eclipse before the sun had set. And I just showed you proof of this in our time. So these observations was being made in the 1600s, 1700s, 1500s. And they was questioning this stuff, you know, and somewhere along the way we got off track and we got all of these theories and fear-mongering pseudoscience ideologies about Nibiru and all of this crap. But again, there are many people with their cameras today that are recording the same phenomena that these guys spoke about in the 1600s, 1800s. They didn't have cameras back then. But the stuff they spoke about, what I'm reading to you here, we are recording it today. So now we have the video evidence to support the truth about our reality, and the ancients were dead on, guys. Sir Henry Holland also noted in his recollections of past life the April 20th, 1837 phenomena where the moon rose eclipse before the sunset. The Daily Telegraph recorded happening again on January 17, 1870, then again in July of the same year. And it continues to happen during lunar eclipses to this day. Therefore, the eclipser of the moon cannot be the Earth's shadow, and another explanation must be sought. Some olden days, flat earthers posited a third dark body the same size as the moon and sun, and perhaps this passes affront the moon during lunar eclipses. Could it even be the mythic black sun, as spoken of by Eric Dubé? Check out Eric Dubé's channel. He has a lot of great information on all of these earth mysteries. So the information I'm reading is coming from a great website called aplaintruth.info. And you can feel free to go and do the rest of your research on this awesome article that they have here on how do eclipses occur when sun and moon are overhead. So even if we take into account a possible moon weather system in which gases would contribute to loss of visibility, that would surely not be enough to cause a lunar eclipse, as the characteristics of such an eclipse bear the marks of another heavenly body which passes in front of the moon. If we search through the legends concerning cosmology all over the world, we will find one and the same thing. Solar and lunar eclipses are caused by two different heavenly bodies. From Vedic cosmology, Rahu and Ketu are two parts of the same Danava and are 180 degrees apart from each other. Whenever either sun or moon are conjunct with Rahu or Ketu, a solar or lunar eclipse takes place. In astronomy, Rahu is considered the dragon's head and is also known as the north node of the moon, the point where the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic. Ketu is known as the dragon's tail, which gives birth to comets and meteors and is known as the descending or the south node of the moon. And again, keep in mind that comets and meteors is nothing what you guys have been taught. A lot of flat earthers believe that comets and meteors are pieces of the firmament. A lot of these precious stones that have spiritual properties, a lot of people say that they are pieces of the firmament. And these stones are spiritual gems that's being sold around the world. One being Moldavite. They say that it's a meteor, but the ancestors describe comets and meteors differently. And a lot is being hidden from us about our reality. So stay tuned for that video on micrometeoroids and comets and all of that stuff, all right? So even in Norse mythology, you will read that Fenrir has two offspring, Hati and Skal. Hati would chase the moon around the sky trying to devour it. Skal would chase the sun around the sky trying to devour it. So when we read Norse mythology, we see the same parallels over in the Vedic astronomy. Rahu and Ketu would be Hati and Skal in Norse mythology. And again, you can find these parallels, just as many parallels you can find of the cosmos that's identical and the different deities that parallel. You can also find these stories about Rahu and Ketu. Again, ancient cosmology, ancient flat earth cosmology is the biggest hidden secret on earth right now. And you need to stick your head into it right now, because we are finding out so much about the earth with just small amounts of research. I haven't even begun to scratch the surface. It's so much cosmology out here. I just get excited every day I wake up. Stay tuned, guys. I'm going to be going into Jamaican cosmology and Native American cosmology. See, we never thought to think of these things. But what did our ancestors say about the cosmos? You have no idea because you never researched it. You took what you were told. You were told about a globe, and you were told that the ancient people were dummies who thought the earth was flat and that the Greeks created the flat earth and all of that. When really in this devilish evil world, everything is backwards. It was not the Greeks who believed in flat earth. It was the ancient ancestors. It was the Greeks who came to rule us all with the globe. And stay tuned for future videos so I could go into the history of the globe and go into detail and everything on how you get the globe and prove my point. But to stay on subject here with Rahu and Ketu, we're going to move right along. To the right is just an image that was caught by a regular citizen of a translucent type disc type object that is crossing in front of the moon, and it's a reddish type object, and once it completely engulfed the moon, you can see the moon appeared red as it appeared like we have to the left here. And only thing about the one on the right, it is very cloudy, but it's the same phenomena. Now, it just doesn't add up with what they say happened here. The lunar eclipse happens at night. When it happens, the moon turns orange in color. keep in mind that there have been lunar eclipses that have happened at different times other than just at nighttime. So even though this is from a flat earth site, some of us still have the globe information there. So that's why I'm showing you this. So we understand that the earth is only a disk when we deal with the cosmology and we're looking at the depictions, because how do you draw an infinite plane on paper? You would need an infinite sheet of paper. So when we look at the ancient cosmos, it's just give us a scale for study purposes. We read on, it says the sunlight goes through the strong magnetic field of the North Pole and the sunlight turns orange and that light then hits the moon. This is one theory right here. It says since the sunlight is orange, it makes the moon appear orange as in this image. But again, this has happened at other times, and this has happened during blood moons. A phenomenon on the right shows it, and different ancestors have spoke about this same phenomenon. I'm not denying that it can happen this way, but it makes more sense because this way don't always add up. The fact that the moon clearly has a companion explains this mystery, because sometimes the moon is red, we see nothing pass in front of it. So if that's the case, then that can only be explained by this mysterious companion. That's just many theories, and that's the whole thing, is just re-questioning the warnings you were given. Why live your whole life only in one thing and you never stop and question it and put your own science and beliefs to the test, unless you just trust that your government told you everything truth, which we know that'll be foolish to think. You see here, it says, as the sun and moon circle the earth, occasionally they come into close proximity with each other. When the moon is in perigee, it is lower altitude than the sun and can cast a shadow and block out the sun. So one thing I want to point out before we move on is that it is possible that an eclipse can happen simply by the moon and sun crossing paths, and it having nothing to do with those mysterious bodies that was spoken of by the ancestors. Because every now and then the sun and moon align. Of course, that happens as well. So eclipses, all of these elements can explain eclipses. And there's a lot of things that support flat earth truth that we are ignoring in our reality, because we gladly accept their theories and equations and we just don't question. But simple observations will reveal the truth. We have now seen that the existence of dark bodies revolving about the luminous objects in the firmament has been admitted by practical observers from the earliest ages, and that in our own day such a mass of evidence has accumulated on the subject that astronomers are compelled to admit that not only dark bodies which occasionally obscure the luminous stars when in conjunction, but that cosmical bodies of large size exist, and that one at least is attached as a satellite to this earth. It is this dark or non-luminous satellite which, when in conjunction or in line with the moon and an observer on earth, is the immediate cause of a lunar eclipse. The moon shining brightly during the whole time of eclipse and with the light of different hue to that of the sun, and the light of the moon having, as previously shown, a different character to that of the sun, the earth not a globe and not in motion round the sun, but sun and moon always over the earth's plane surface, render the proposition unavoidable, as it is clearly undeniable that a lunar eclipse does not and could not in the nature of things arise from a shadow of the earth, but must of sheer logical necessity be referred to some other cause. And that is what I mentioned previously. That cause would be Rahu and Ketu, as spoken of by the ancestors. So again, this wouldn't be arising from a shadow of the earth. If we say that moon phases are caused by the earth's shadow, that would debunk itself, because you would have to explain, and I'm sure these globalists got a good explanation for what I'm about to present to you, there's no way moon phases can be caused by the Earth's shadow, because a half moon is a straight line. If that shadow was being caused by the Earth, why is it a straight line? That would prove the Earth is flat during a half moon, right? Think about what I'm saying. The moon phases can't be caused by the Earth's shadow, people. The half moon itself debunked that. I'm just getting you to open your mind. That's all I'm doing. I just can't drive that home enough. And I just want to keep this picture up here for a minute for these globe heads, because they love to say that the moon phases are caused by the Earth's shadow, but then they ignore the half moon. If the Earth is a globe, there shouldn't be a half moon with a perfect straight line. All right. So this proved that the moon is just a self-luminant light source that behaves dynamic, and it self-illuminates. And again, there's footage out there that'll show you what I'm talking about. What I'm pointing out to you right now is undeniable proof that the moon is dynamic and is a light source, and it's its own phenomena, because there's no way that can be a half moon with a straight line if the Earth is a globe. I'm sorry. There's no way to explain around that one. We just going to look at some more pictures of the moon before we go any further, because part of this video is exploring moon mysteries as well. So if we look at some of these pictures here, before I open up my mouth and say anything, we just going to look at them. And I'm going to ask you, what do you observe? What do you observe, brothers and sisters? I'm going to flip through. We see the moon during the day. We see the moon during the night. You know what I observe? I observe that during the daytime, if you look closely at the moon, you can clearly see the blue sky through the moon. You can clearly see the blue sky in the background behind the moon. So the moon is kind of translucent, and we're kind of seeing the blue sky through the moon. And if you look at the pictures of the moon out at nighttime, you can clearly see the black sky behind the moon. So again, people, we got to re-observe our reality. These are observations some of you haven't made until now. And you have to re-observe what they are telling us. Don't believe anything that's showing on the news. Why would you believe in the Nibiru? And that's what the news is pushing and promoting. Why would you believe in everything NASA is teaching you? Don't you know that there's not no areas of your reality that they don't lie in? Science is another form of religion. It's no different than believing in any religious deity. It's another form of sun worship, except you just worship the sun itself. Okay? You forget the balance of the yin and yang of our cosmos. Now, again, you can see the blue sky through the moon during the day and the black sky through the moon at nighttime. It proves that the moon has a degree of translucency to it, a transparency to it, so to speak. Now, the picture you're looking at now, I just wanted to point this out because many of you may not know that the moon is linked to women and some of your earliest moon goddess. And when we talk about the hidden one, we're talking about the divine mother, the cosmic mother. Today, that's deep because the moon is the hidden one today, and we're in a sun-dominated scientific world, religious world, and all of that type of stuff. But no one understands that the mysteries is hidden in the science and knowledge behind the moon, which has its companion Ketu. And the woman is directly linked to the moon, you know, and that being said, the picture you're looking at in front of you shows you where we get our diamond ring concept from and why women get diamond rings today. A lot of things I show y'all on this channel, I link it back to the divine feminine and a woman because a lot of ancient cosmology ties directly into a mother goddess. And this predates any male deities and any patriarchal ideologies. So this is very deep, and I just want y'all to look at that for a minute. It looks just like a diamond ring, and as above, so below. Like I tell y'all in every video, everything we do is ritual. Everything we do is cosmology. Some of you think I'm just talking, but I'm showing you here, even just a simple diamond ring goes back to cosmology. And we don't think of nothing new as humans. It's as above, so below. We create in the image and likeness of the Most High, just like we are created in the image and likeness of the Most High. And remember, when we give women rings, we're making a vow. And when we say vow, the V is the B. In a lot of cultures, they pronounce the V and the B are interchangeable. And they both rhyme. And they both have the V present. Even when you make a B, there's a V in the middle. And when I get into these alphabets and symbolism in the future, I'm going to tie in a lot of loose ends with the symbolism and everything. So remember that when we talk the V, we're talking about a sacred symbol that became the peace symbol. And I'm going to get into all of this because it's dealing with the Vedas and the Vedic traditions, dealing with the vagina, the vortex of the woman, all of the Venus worship, dealing with the divine feminine. The V is a very sacred alphabet. And all of the Greek alphabets are symbols within themselves that a lot of people are throwing under the bus. We can't take none of this stuff because it all goes back to our ancient ancestors, even the Greek alphabets. One of the big deceptions today is we throw out the Greek alphabet, but we need it to decode a lot of things because we speak English. So we got to learn how to use these alphabets in a symbol form and link it back to the myth. And then we can decode the English alphabet by breaking it down to its symbol form in relation to its sound and its sacred geometry, each alphabet. And I'm going to be showing y'all exactly what I'm talking about in the future. There's so much I have to do, but just to stay on subject, the diamond ring is linked to the woman. We make a vow with it. And when we say vow, we make a bow. What happens when a man make a vow? When he proposes with the ring, he takes a bow. So the vow is the bow. So the vow is the bow, just like the covenant is the arch. So the arch of the covenant, we know that this arch, this band represents a promise or an agreement, a trust, just like a vow is a promise. And what goes with a vow often in tradition is a bow. So the vows is the bows, and this etymology tied to the traditions we see in our reality. I don't want to go into that in this video. That goes into the underworld and a journey into the bowels of the earth. With the bowel is the bowl. Okay. So just to give you a little bit further, more understanding on what I mean when I say the vow is the bow, you can look at it another way, this way. What you're looking at in front of you now is the Sumerian cosmos. And if you look at the Sumerian cosmos where the Arch of the Covenant is, you see that during this time, they called the Arch of the Covenant the seal, and it's spelled C-I-E-L. And that is the root word of our modern word, ceiling. Today, when you look up at the arch or the roof of your house, you say that's the ceiling. And that comes from the Sumerian cosmos, the root word seal. And that's also can be spelled S-E-A-L. And every state has a great seal. And it goes back again. A seal is an agreement. It's a covenant. So all of the arches above you, just like a rainbow is linked to the promise of God, the arch is linked to a promise, an agreement. Again, when you take that vow, you take that vow. So this is as above, so below. So a seal is a sealing and an agreement, because after the firmament was made, there was an agreement that the earth won't be flooded again by the waters above. And even when you say the word firmament, the root word of firmament is firm, And that's what you get in a law firm. Why do they say law firm? Because it's an agreement. It's a trust between a group of individuals. So again, your etymology, when you say firmament and you talk law and trust and agreements, you're talking a law firm. Not only that, when two people shake each other's hand, we are told to have a firm handshake. When you handshake, you got to have a firm handshake. And if it's loose, that's a sign of distrust or lack of manhood. So you shake that hand real tight. And anybody that grew up in the church like Brother Sanchez know that the older men in the church, when you shake their hand, when they shake your little hand, they almost break your bones off because they know something that you don't get yet, that you got to squeeze it tight because that represents a firmament. The firm is solid and it's strong. And it goes again back to, like I told y'all, everything we do is cosmology, as above, so below. 10 is Zen. And when you shake someone's hand, 5 plus 5 bring you back to that divine triangle number. But I'm going to get deeper into this in the future. When you look at the ancient cosmology, there's a bow or an arc at the top. And when we say bowl, the root word of bowl is bow. And what happens at the end of a show, the entertainer takes a bow because there's a bow at the top of the cosmos and there's a bow at the bottom. As above, so below, these bowls or these bowels. And when you have a bowel movement, it takes place in the area below because we're dealing with the bowl. Remember that the Super Bowl happens at the end of the season. So as the World Cup, and a cup is the same as a bowl or a bowl. And the root word of Cupid is cup because we're going back to the archangels, and where there's an arch is a cup or a bowl. And when you talk archangels, you're just talking about the energy that resides at the tip of the arc dome or the zenith. And this is where the North Pole energy burst out and forms a figure 8, feeding infinity into our system. As I explained in previous videos, you're in the infinite realm. So again, the moon is very holographic. Our reality is very beautiful. The moon is an entity, a powerful entity, just like the sun, and they're equal. Neither one is better than the next one. It's a yin and yang dance. And the moon does have a degree of transparency or translucency, if you will. And I've shown footage on this channel of people zooming into the moon and actually observing stars through the moon. People looking directly through the moon at stars behind the moon. And they're seeing them directly through the moon. Again, we can see the night sky black behind the moon, the day sky blue behind the moon. And there have been times where people have seen stars directly through the moon, as you see in the footage in front of you. In the report of the Academy of Sciences for October 12, 1846, and again for August 1847, the director of one of the French observatories gives a number of observations and calculations which have led him to conclude that there is at least one non-luminous body of considerable magnitude which is attached as a satellite to this earth. Sir John Herschel admits that invisible moons exist in the firmament. Did you hear what I just said, people? I'm giving you so many proofs and facts. You see, this was in 1847 when people still had the true cosmology, but they were still trying to figure it out because there still was distortion and plagiarization. There was still corruption. This corruption process took place over years and years. You got to understand that ever since the beginning of time, humanity understood a flat earth cosmology, and just up until just a few hundreds or a few couple years ago, we was introduced to the globe concept. So they haven't undone all of those ancient remnants, and we're actually in the process of them still undoing that stuff. And that's why it's coming full surface at this time. The truth cannot be held down forever, but you gotta accept it if you want to be free. So we see here back in the 1800s, Sir John Herschel said there is at least one non-luminous body of considerable magnitude which is attached as a satellite to this earth, and he admits that invisible moons exist in the firmament. Again, many call them X-moons. We know that the ancients spoke of them in many texts as well, as I previously mentioned. So along with those observations that were done in the 1800s, there was a man by the name of Sir John Lubbock who gave the same opinion as John Herschel and gives rules and formulas for calculating their distances and periods. At the meeting of the British Association for the Advancements of Science in 1850, the president stated that the opinion was gaining ground that many of the fixed stars were accompanied by companions emitting no light. This is very deep stuff, guys. It goes on to say stars that are invisible and consequently have no name move in space together with those that are visible. Lambert, in his cosmological ladders, admits the existence of dark cosmical bodies of great size. The facts now placed in contrast make it impossible to conclude otherwise than that the moon does not shine by reflection, but by a light peculiar to herself, that she is in short self-luminous. This conclusion is confirmed by the following consideration. The moon is said by the Newtonian philosophers to be a sphere. If so, its surface could not possibly reflect. A reflector must be concave or plane, so that the rays of light may have an angle or incidence. If the surface is convex, every ray of light falls upon it in a line direct with radius or perpendicular to the surface. Hence there cannot be an angle of incidence and therefore none of reflection. If the moon's surface were a mass of highly polished silver, it could not reflect from more than a mere point. Let a silvered glass ball of considerable size be held before a lamp or fire of any magnitude, and it will be seen that instead of the whole surface reflecting light, there will only be a very small portion illuminated. But during full moon, the whole disk shines intensely, an effect which from a spherical surface is impossible. So again, in Vedic astronomy, Rahu is the companion that gobbles up the sun during a solar eclipse. Rahu and Ketu taking his revenge by gobbling up the sun and moon. Rahu Ketu was one being at first until he lost the battle and became two separate entities, one that gobbles the sun during the solar eclipse and one that gobbles the moon during the lunar eclipse. And they're each represented in their own way. One is the one without a head and one is the one without a body. Now, the picture you're looking at in front of you is just mythological Hindu Vedic art, and you will see this all around those regions. So as you can see from a lot of the statues and art that's associated with Rahu and Ketu all around Southeast Asia and other parts of the world, because the two of them are deified, and again you see the statues, they're all in temples and everywhere, one without a head, one without a body. Anyway, to make a long story short, you will see over time where these symbols became summed up in many variations, some of which depicts the crescent moon with the sword chopping off the head, symbolizing Ketu. So you will see in a lot of art the sword, and you will see the crescent moon, you will see the lion as you see in front of you. And I just wanted to make the comparison to the Nation of Islam symbol. Are a lot of these people aware of the truth? I would think so. And there's so many other things you can compare the Nation of Islam symbol to. A lot of people say it's the transit of Venus. Hey, it could mean seeing stars through the moon. I'm just being funny. But seriously, the Nation of Islam symbol ties into some aspect of our cosmology, if not many and all of the same. And Shriners. The Shriners symbol actually have the sword above the crescent moon. We know that the moon symbolizes Ketu, You see that there's a star in the middle of that crescent moon. Could this mean the eclipse? Could the star be the sun in the background? And could the eclipse of this crescent moon be Ketu, symbolized by the sword? Because we know that Ketu holds the sword, because Ketu is the one without a head. So when we look at the Shriners logo, it kind of put me in the mind frame of Ketu. And we know that the Nation of Islam is a Shriners organization. Another thing I want to point out is that the Nagini tail that's associated with Ketu. Remember, Ketu is the moon energy, the goddess, the mother goddess. And we see the Nagini tail, which is a form of deification. We notice that NASA has the serpent. The serpent appears in the tree of life. It's associated with the woman, and it was desecration in the garden where the woman was desecrated and the divine feminine was tainted, and the patriarchs actually ruled after that mythology. I go into that in previous videos. Just understand that Ketu is linked to the divine feminine, and that at the end of all ancient cosmology sits a divine mother, a great mother. And those male deities came along with chaos to rule in their cosmologies. The divine mother ruled with balance and scales and balance on the land. Ma'at, what goes around comes around. You keepers of the earth, what you do to the earth will determine what she do to you. So when we break the law of nature and go against Ma'at, here we are today. So balance must be restored, because heaven just means even. The H is silent. And I go into that in previous videos. We're going to keep it on Rahu and Ketu and on this flat earth cosmology, so you can understand that eclipses are not what you have thought, and that there are companion moons, shadow moons, for lack of better words. And our reality is magical. We're in a beautiful reality. And the more I explore it, the more I just embrace the genius of the Most High. And I realized that the creator is not a chaotic creator like we've been taught our whole life. And it's not this chaotic creator that'll throw you and the earth into a lake of fire, okay? The creator didn't build a lake of fire when it built humanity. That's already planning for failure. We know that the creator is perfect, and that the only thing imperfect is our perception, and the fact that we're in an illusion right now, and we need to regain our senses by not ignoring them. During the half moon, there shouldn't be a straight line. If you globers still want to say, okay, you know, maybe we can't prove why the half moon is a straight line, but the curved shadow proved that the earth is a globe. If you want to say that, that still debunks your theory. Because according to the people who taught you about the globe, the earth is now a pear shape. So the shadow we should be seeing on the earth should be a pear type shadow. So that's a lot of stuff you got to think about. On top of the fact that after them telling us the earth was pear shaped, they just uploaded footage the other day of a globe earth. Don't y'all know you globe earthers debunk yourselves every day you show live footage of a ball earth? Because y'all just said it was a pear-shaped earth. Your scientists, your teachers, the head of your globe department, and all of your top scientists and globe pushers now say that it's a pear. But yet all of this footage we get from so-called space is still showing us a perfect globe. And y'all say that I'm crazy. All of this stuff I'm pointing out to you don't add up. And it's just one video. I can't even do it all in one video. The video will be a month long, probably a couple years long, pointing out all of their deception. But let's move on, y'all. So I just want to go over some couple more pictures before we close out. The picture you're looking at now is the deception that we get from conventional scientists, and this is how they explain Rahu and Ketu's pattern. But again, if you just look at the orbits that they have going here, and you notice in the middle it makes a diamond or a yoni, or what some call a cube. This is all matriarch ancient flat earth cosmology, that they're just giving you over and over and over again in different ways. And they're using this same symbol to support all of their theories. Now, for those of you who have been following me, you know that what you're looking at now is nothing but another example of the figure 8, the wasp or the bee, the Vesica Pisces, okay, when the two circles combine to form the yoni in the middle, when the two fishes that forms the yoni. This is the same concept that they're giving you for Rahu Ketu, and they give it to you in so many different ways. And you can see that this symbol of Ouroboros is also another form here of Rahu and Ketu, because remember the story of Rahu and Ketu, the one without the head, the one without the body, based on a decapitation. And you have that same decapitation story in the Ouroboros, or the later European version that came with the dragon head and dragon tail myth, which is just an offshoot of this old Vedic astronomy, which is the oldest on Earth. All right. So these are plagiarizations that hide these celestial bodies that really exist in our reality. But when you take their myths and their story with it, you don't get the truth. And you end up on videos like the previous fella who can't explain this stuff without looking foolish. The only thing that makes sense is what the ancestors left us. So you can see that the Ouroboros logo represents the perfection of the sun and moon. And we know that they have companions, and that this symbol is just an offshoot of Rahu and Ketu, and also became NASA's symbol. So when you see Rahu here in Indian culture eating the sun, it's the same as the snake you have with NASA eating its tail. Now, I can go deep into this in future videos, but we basically get the point here. I'm going to let y'all go at this time because it's been an extensive video. So I hope I freed you guys' mind, or at least opened it to the ancient concepts and give you something to consider. I know this is a lengthy video, so play it over and over again. I put a lot of work into it, so I encourage you guys to give me a thumbs up and comment below and share this video with everyone you know. And before I get out of here, I just want to give a big shout out to my family of patrons. The channel could not progress without you guys' support. You guys are awesome. And I can't explain how much all of my subscribers mean to me. Your encouragement is just priceless, guys. And with all the hate and with all of the backlash that comes at me for going against conventional science, your encouragement is very well needed. Your support, sharing my videos, and all of that stuff means a lot to me. So join our family of patrons if you want to help me progress and spread the knowledge, because remember, this is not popular, and I'm not supported by any big media stations or anything like that. I'm just a humble man that's using the best of my ability to put forth this information, and it does take a lot of time and resources. So if you like what I do and you would like to support me in a monetary way, join our family of patrons. And if you don't want to do that, then make a one-time PayPal donation. Let me just say this before I get out of here. We have to support things that we feel make a positive impact, because negativity is getting supported on a massive scale. Okay, if each of you guys that's watching this video simply went to PayPal and just donated $1, that'll really help us continue to spread the truth and drive the channel forward and grow the channel. So I don't normally make long drawn out videos asking you guys for monetary donations, but we can use you guys' help, and I do want to take it to the next level. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in once again. You guys be safe out there. Open your minds, replay the video, and remember, new uploads every Thursday. Peace and much love.